So like every episode, we're wondering if we're live because the Sling Studio is a little bit behind. I'm going to assume we're live, and I'm going to launch. Oh, wait, we are live. Hello, God bless, and welcome. I'm Pastor Kevin Haggerty. This is the Godlogic Project, where we discuss maintaining a Christian worldview in a post-Christian America. We got an important show again tonight. We have a gentleman that has written a couple of books on the emotional wellness, particularly of children, but it does apply as well to adults. But first, the intro music. Hello, God bless, and welcome. I'm Kevin Haggerty, and this is the Godlogic Project.
Shut up, Kevin.
Yes, I'm Kevin Haggerty, and that's Mike Houston telling me to shut up like every episode. We have in the studio today, we have Rod Cunningham. Rod is an author and public speaker. He has two books out, right, Rod?
Yes, sir.
He has 2 books out on the on emotionally empowering children and adults, and we're going to go over that particularly. To his left is Rachel from Recovery Epicenter. How are you, Rachel?
Amazing. How are you?
Good. You look lovely this evening.
Thank you.
Anything you wanted to say to me? I mean,
You're amazing.
I did my makeup. And then in second chair tonight, we have our first official co-host of the Godlogic Project, Pastor Michael Carter. How you doing, buddy?
All right. I'm blessed to be here. It's an honor.
Well, it's an honor to have you, buddy. And I think this is it's worked out well because the topic tonight is something you and I are very familiar with. Certainly, it's an important topic, and it's something that that weighs heavy on me. So while we spend a lot of our time arguing left and right, and we're writing sermons and preaching sermons and writing books and doing podcasts, there's children falling through the cracks here, and we're missing out on an opportunity to be the shepherds that we're called to be. And that goes for adults as well. So we're going to dig into that a little bit with Rod. Rod, tell us a little bit about yourself and kind of where you've been and what brings you here this evening, buddy.
Wow, where have I been? Been all over the world. I'm actually 29 years retired Air Force.
Thank you for your service.
Thank you. I retired about 3 years ago out of Biloxi, Mississippi, and then I moved to the Pinellas County area, and then later moved over to Pasco County.
Well, excellent. So I'm glad. It's always an honor to have a veteran in here. You are from Florida, correct?
Yes,
You
sir.
are from Jacksonville?
Originally from Jacksonville.
What the kids call J-Town?
Duval.
Duval County, ladies and gentlemen. Duval County, Florida. Do the kids still call it J-Town, bro?
No, they call it Duval.
Duval? Am I kind of out of the loop?
Yeah, you're out of the loop.
I've been living in the 727. Michael, have I been living in the 727 or what?
If you don't know Plies and Little Duval, you are way behind the curve just in Florida. Just in the state of Florida, you're way behind, brother.
Bro, I get older and older. I get a year older every day. I don't know how I do it. I used to be very cool. I had long hair and a Led Zeppelin earring, bro. I was something to be reckoned with back in the day. Now look at me. I'm a single mother and I pastor a church. How much more of a nerd could I be? You could defend me now, Rod. Do we need to unpack some of that? Am I emotionally damaged for saying that?
I just like to say I've never been to Jackson. I've passed through Jacksonville, but now having gotten an awareness of Plies and Little Duval and then meeting Mr. Cunningham, I've got to go to Jacksonville. Jacksonville is what's happening, apparently.
Yes, what's happening.
That's where they build them strong.
Build them strong. That's right.
They build them strong. I'm guessing that's a good thing, right? Is that positive?
Well,
yeah, that's positive.
That's positive. Just in that vein, though, I'd like for you to share a little more. I was just thinking as we introduced you that one of my favorite quotes, and it's been attributed to Frederick Douglass, is that it's easier to build strong children than repair broken men.
Yeah.
And now that I've been in recovery and assisting and mentoring people in recovery for so long, it's tough to deal with a grown man who's got muscles and a beard and all this worldly experience, and he wants to let you know that he's a man, but he's still behaving like a 12-year-old. Talk to us about that.
Well, it's interesting you say that because when a 50-year-old man has been told by his wife to stop acting like a 12-year-old.
Ouch.
Well, if you peel back the onion, I'm an onion peeler.
Yeah.
If you peel back the onion, 12 was probably when his father died.
Okay.
Or when he
left.
experienced some kind, when he left or experienced some kind of trauma in his life, some kind of abuse or what have you. And so emotionally, that child never grew up. So that man never grew up emotionally, but physically, he's a grown man. And he wants everybody to know he's a grown man, especially if he's living with trauma inside of him, because now he has to cover that trauma through bravado many times.
Yes, sir.
So that's what you're dealing with. So when a person starts to seek counseling and start doing certain things in his life, then he can start growing up 1 year at a time. And maybe in about 5 years, he can become 50 again from 12. May take him a while, but he'll get there if he's looking to get there.
Yes, sir.
That's the key. You have to want to change. We all know somebody that needs counseling, but we never know that when we need it.
Why did Pastor Michael look over here when you said that? That ain't right, Mike.
and see, I'm a life coach, so
Yes, sir.
I still want my clients to go to their therapist, because the therapist or the counselor or the psychologist helps you deal with your past. A life coach helps you to design your future.
Yeah, that's
and so
good.
there's a difference.
Well. Tell me this though, because I'm from also an age where we either got high and pretended that the trauma did not happen to us, or, well, ultimately, because we got high, we were told that we needed the Lord Jesus. You just need Jesus. So
Right.
Why doesn't just Jesus work, and a person still needs a little bit of counseling?
Well, anytime I'm talking to youth, I always like to ask them, what do you do when you're highly stressed? And so hands go up. I smoke, I drink, I fight, I play video games, I, shut down or what have you. I eat. So the one young man, he said, Mr. Cunningham, I'm not going to lie, I smoke weed. I said, now, I know that there are 4 steps or 4 things that bother most young people, but he doesn't know those things, right? So if I tell him what's wrong, he's gonna deny it. So I said, let me do some coaching with this young man in front of everyone. So by coaching, I ask why 6 times. So I say, young man, why is it that you smoke marijuana? Well, because it's fun and all my friends are doing it. Okay. Why is it important for you to have so much fun with your friends? Well, because it helps me not to think about certain things. Why do you want to resist thinking about things? Because my home life isn't what I want it to be. Why isn't your home life what you want it to be? Because my mother hates me. Oh, so you smoke weed because your mother hates you, not because it's fun. So that's the difference. So there's 4 things that bother most 13-year-olds. And if it bothers you at 13, it bothers you at 73.
Yeah.
Number 1, you don't have the relationship with a biological parent that you desire to have. That could mean dad is in the house, but he doesn't talk. He doesn't communicate. Number 2 is loss. Somebody passed away who you truly love. Grandma, grandpa, mom, dad, sibling, best friend in a car accident. Number 3 is trauma. Seeing another man hit your mother. Seeing the police officer come into the house and slam your father against the wall. Inappropriate touching. All of those things are examples of trauma. And then number 4 is rejection. As a 13-year-old, how are you rejected? You're told you're ugly. Your ears are big. Your feet stink, whatever, yeah. Right? Or you have a 15-year-old girlfriend or boyfriend, and you guys pledge your life to each other, your love to each other. We're gonna grow up. We're gonna get married. We're gonna have babies. 6 months later, they break up with you and go out with your best friend. So that's the kind of rejection that we actually never get over. I was coaching one young lady recently who she was fired from her job. She was fired from the next job that she was on within a year, and her relationship broke up. And she's 45. And I said, I'm surprised you're not suicidal. She says, I am, but I wouldn't leave my daughter. So most people don't know other people's story and when that last thing is going to take them over.
Right.
And that it could be that last thing that puts them on drugs, or that last thing that, you know, sends them to divorce, or that last thing that makes them want to commit suicide.
Yeah, well, I find when I'm working with folks in addiction recovery or in even in spiritual or emotional recovery, they generally they want to treat the what, you know, drinking, smoking, womanizing, cheating on their wives, whatever it is, but not the why. So these things are all drinking, drugging, womanizing, adultery,
Yes.
any besetting sin, any debilitating obsession that these people struggle with is really just a symptom of something else, right? And to me, of course, it's being knocked out of your relationship, your Genesis 2 relationship with your Creator. But there's always something underneath it that they need to recover from, more than even the drinking and drugging. And I find, and I don't know, Pastor Michael, if you find this too, but people generally want to recover from the consequences of their debilitating obsession or their addiction. Very rarely do they want to recover from the addiction itself, right? So they're willing to say or do anything they need to say or do to get to the point where they get their house back, they get their wife back, they get the car back, they get the kids back, they get the job back, they get whatever they wanted back, and then they undo all the work they've done over the last year or however long it's been. Gets undone systematically. I see it all the time, and it's heartbreaking. So it never goes to the why do they want to recover? Does that make sense?
Well, I think that when we experience our first piece of trauma, or our first event that lends trauma into our lives, we don't realize that it's affecting us, and that's why we are where we are. Right? So if you go back and deal with that, because, you know, if that trauma made you angry, made you sad, makes you have anxiety or feel depressed, then, how do I say, if that does that, you don't realize what's going on. So now you are looking for something to comfort you.
Yeah.
In that particular situation, because we weren't born sad, we weren't born angry, right? There was a first time, and so we have to deal with that first time so we're not constantly triggered by things. I think that stress is the big domino here.
Yeah.
When we're stressed, we need something to comfort us. And we were talking earlier about a pacifier that we give a child, you know, when they're hurt or stressed at 1 year old. Well, we still reach for a pacifier today. Maybe that pacifier is like I said, drinking, smoking, shopping. They call that retail therapy, right? Yeah. You know, we do something, and normally we spend money. So, so if we can eliminate stress, we can eliminate drinking, smoking, cheating on your spouse, you know, sexual addiction.
Sure.
All of those things comfort us in those times when we need to be comforted, or we feel like we need to be comforted. So if we can master stress, and that kind of goes back to the spiritual aspect of being able to immediately give that stress to God, now your stress comes down, because when we're highly stressed, we actually make what kind of decisions?
Emotional, poor decisions.
Poor decisions, yeah. Right? We lower the stress, we make better decisions. So the quicker we learn how to give our situation to God, to Him, then our stress immediately comes down. Now we can think of the action necessary to fix the current situation.
Yeah, so we need to avoid doing what feels good, and we need to focus on doing what does good. So I tell people all the time, never make a decision when you're emotional. When your emotions are high, it's not the time to make a big decision. You can decide what you're going to have for dinner, but you're not going to decide. That's not the time to decide if you're going to stay loyal to your wife, right? Now is not that time. So we can make that decision a day or two from now. But right now, we need to get you need to get two coherent thoughts in a row.
Exactly.
So I'm going to take a second here, guys, and I'm going to plug Rod's website, and I have it queued up here. It's on the bottom of the screen, so you guys can copy down chiefempowerment.com. But here's the website right here, and this is, of course, Rod's picture right there. And Rod is the author of a couple of books, and we're going to talk about that here in a second. But there they are right there, Climb and Climb 2. And Climb is a what's it called? Anachronism? What's it
an
called?
Acronym. So
They're acronyms for what?
For courage, the C is for courage. The L is for love. The I is for integrity. The M is for mindfulness, and the B is for belief.
Those all sound like character defects to me, bro. I wouldn't have any of those. Michael, would you have any of those in your life?
oh man, that's a great that's a great list.
So yeah, these are good books. These are important books, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that and what's in there, why there's two of them. But the website is chiefempowerment.com. I encourage you guys to get over there. And while we're on the subject, if you would enjoy the content of the Godlogic Project, please subscribe, ring the alert bell. We'll let you know every time new content is uploaded. We're generally doing a live podcast once a week with some pretty serious topics, some pretty serious conversation here. I'd like to have you guys in on the conversation. So if you stick around, we're going to have a live call in here in the second half of the show. You'll be able to call in and ask questions to the people at the table here. So again, if you would, subscribe, ring the alert bell, hang in there with us a little bit longer. We're going to continue to talk, and then we're going to be taking your calls in a little bit. So tell us a little bit more about the books, Rod. What are we looking for? Who would we recommend these books to?
So as I said, that when you take a 13-year-old girl who has been touched inappropriately, or you take a 13-year-old boy who saw his mother, someone strike his mother, we call that trauma. If they never deal with that trauma, what kind of decisions do you think they'll be making in their 20s and 30s?
Yeah, terrible ones, yeah.
Right? Some pretty bad decisions.
Certainly defensive ones, right?
Right. Maybe even doing some of the things that they saw, that they witnessed.
As an expression, what they see as an expression of love, maybe.
Exactly. Dealing with some anger, some sadness, some depression, some anxiety. But all of a sudden, at the age of 45, when they walk into a room, a light follows them in the room. And everyone is going, oh, my goodness, you look great. What did you do? You've changed. Oh, wow. I mean, your eyes, everything, your posture, everything looks great. And you're like, I don't know what I did. I mean, I got saved. I volunteered at my church. Okay, great. What else did you do? I don't know. Well, it took them 32 years to stumble across the 5 steps to emotional wellness. What if someone wrote a book to the 13-year-olds and taught them the 5 steps to emotional wellness?
Yeah.
They embraced those 5 steps by the age of 14. How different would their lives be in their 20s and 30s and beyond?
Yeah. So I don't want to tell you what I was like when I was 14, but it wasn't pretty. And this is the kind of thing that I needed, right? So to give you an idea, I quit drinking when I was 21. I didn't even have to shave yet, and I was done drinking, if that tells you anything. So the idea that these kids we can act preemptively and not let these kids develop the bad habits that will be. I tell AJ all the time, I'm not trying to raise a boy that can shape. I'm trying to raise a man.
Right.
You know?
Right.
So there's a big difference between being 25 and being a man, a very big difference. And so Michael, you talked a little bit about if we get to them early. Before we went on the air, you talked about if we get to them early enough, we won't be fixing.
Well, actually, I like to ask the question too, Mr. Cunningham, because we see such an uptick in the number of school shootings. We see more preteens suffering from depression and being bullied, and we see the effects of trauma, and yet the school system still seems to focus more on IQ, the intelligent quotient, than EQ, emotional quotient. Why aren't the schools being more preemptive in this same type of teaching that you've created in this book that you have?
It's interesting you say that, because I have talked to the schools. And so a lot of people don't understand how divorce directly affects a child and their emotions and so on and so forth. So if the child has good grades, we're not thinking about it. If the child lost their father when they were 8, now they're 10, and the grades are good,
that's right.
We're not worried about it, because I've gone to, after I've worked with some of the kids, I've gone to the administration and said, hey, this young man lost his father 2 years ago and never got counseling. Oh, well, let me look at his grades. Whoa. What does that have to do with anything? So a lot of people, a lot of school systems don't understand the indicators, right? And that's something I'm kind of pushing for, is to help them create 20 different indicators that if they had a death in the family, that's a 3, and something else is a 1. And if their father walked away, that's a 2. And that particular student will then have through their school system, they would have a ranking.
Quantification of
quantification.
the EQ.
Exactly. Yeah. Because, every kid, for the most part, we're all highly intelligent. It's the emotions that is smothering our IQ. Wow. We can't read because we're thinking about the fact that we didn't get a meal last night, or the fact that grandma just passed, or the fact that, they're getting beat every night when they go home, or, whatever that situation may be. And so if I'm thinking about that, how can I read this page?
Sure.
And then that just kind of crosses over. I was a slow reader myself in high school. I'm still a slow reader, right? It takes me a while because, I was a very, I call it emotional reader growing up. Mm-hmm. And I graduated high school with a 2.0.
Congratulations.
But I got my bachelor's with a 3.8, my master's with a 4.0.
There you go.
And so when I wrote my book, some of the first people to purchase it were my classmates, because they're like, what?
Yeah.
Is this possible?
Exactly. Anything's possible. So I didn't realize how smart I was until I joined the Air Force, and they start saying, Airman Cunningham, you're smart. You're a hard charger. We love what you do. And I'm like, wow, really? And I believe them. Yeah. And then I was able to climb all the way up the ladder as an enlisted Chief Master Sergeant.
Yes, sir. Well, you gave me a hint leading right into my next question. What experiences from your childhood led you into your current understanding beyond your classroom learning and your Air Force experiences that helped to shape your understanding of the need for good mental health counseling and growth?
Well, I would say that about 2 years before I retired, I told my wife is an amazing woman, and she is a true queen and a true helpmate to me. And I told her, I said, honey, I want to be a motivational speaker. And she said, well, Rod, you're going to have to tell your story. I said, my story? I don't have a story. She says, everyone has a story. I said, well, honey, if everyone has a story, then what's my story? She said, you were born to a 15-year-old mother. Mm. Your mother got married when she was 16, and your father was very abusive, and you saw your father hit your mother and throw her against the table. Your biological father died before you were born. And I was sitting there like, I do have a story.
Right. Yes, sir.
Maybe she should write a book.
I'm trying to convince her to do so, right? She's a very smart person. So I said that to say I was telling stories, but I just wasn't telling my story because I didn't realize I had one, but we all have one. And so we have to find that inner story inside of us and get that out. And so it was that moment for me that I realized I had all this stuff bottled up.
Yes.
That all those 4 things that I talked about that I had actually experienced. And then when I lost my mother at the age of 46, I was suicidal at 46.
Really?
Yeah, it crossed my mind briefly, but it crossed my mind. I said, wow, my dad's gone, my mom's gone, my mother-in-law is dying, and my wife is up north to take care of her. So I felt abandoned by my wife, even though she was taking care of her dying mother. So the abandonment, the fact that I just lost my mom, her mom was passing away, and I was like, man, why am I living? And I said, whoa. I said, I'm a grandfather, I'm a father, I have 5,000 troops that's depending on me. I can't be broken. So I started down this line, and that's how I came up with the 5 steps to emotional wellness, because I started down this line of wellness for myself. I started going to mental health. I started, listening to 5 sermons a day from either T.D. Jakes or Joel Osteen. I just had to keep getting my mind right. I started volunteering to go into the juvenile detention centers. So I was finding purpose in my life by going to the juvenile detention centers in Mississippi, because I said, well, wow, if I'm broken at 46, what does a 12-year-old boy look like who just lost his father?
Dealing with the same thing.
Dealing with the same thing. And so that's how I started down this road, because I had to have my own recovery, and writing about it, journaling is one of them. So journaling is one, right? Finding purpose is another, going into the juvenile detention centers. Counseling is another. Forgiveness. Mm-hmm. Some people I had to forgive in my life.
Yes, sir.
My stepfather being one of them.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting enough, he died 24 hours after my mother.
Wow.
And they had been divorced for 30 years.
Really?
Yes. How crazy was that? And so, but I had to, go through all of these things to be able to write this book. And then I had to test the book. So I started doing small groups when I moved to Pinellas County. I would go to Pinellas County Job Corps and every Wednesday night and sit with about 8 to 12 young people who are going through the Job Corps. And I would test a lot of these theories on them. And then I did that for 2 years, and then I wrote the book.
Well, some of the things you talk about, Rod, we talk about in recovery. So a lot of the things that you're talking about, whether you realize it or not, are principles that we apply in recovery, in my case, chemical, alcohol,
but you have
drugs.
to go to recovery to find out.
Right. So here's my question then, and Rachel, maybe you could speak into this, but if we were to apply this as a curriculum as parents or homeschoolers or even the school board, applying this as a curriculum like Michael talked about with an emotional IQ, an emotional quotient, could we lighten the load for people like you and me that are in and day out in the recovery field?
I think so. Listening to all this, I'm thinking of my own children. Mm-hmm. I have teenage children, 13, 14-year-old boys. I have a 21-year-old son who has bipolar issues and goes to counseling and is doing really well now. But looking all their past traumas, they have a mom that was a drug addict. They saw horrible things at home. Mom went to jail. They lost their home. And so how do we break those cycles? How do I teach them to be comfortable with who they are and love themselves?
Yeah. How do we get them in this? Can this book then get these kids in the spiritual strike zone before they're at risk? You know what I'm saying? So
Right.
Could we then build a strong foundation? Of course, I would say a scriptural foundation as well, but could we use this book then to draw a strong emotional foundation for these kids so they don't end up going to Lincoln Avenue like I did when I was a kid, right? And getting acceptance from guys that were bad dudes, you know what I'm saying?
I think so.
Yeah.
I really think so. I can never take away all the damage that I've caused, but my children are developing their personal relationship with God, making a huge difference. We do go to counseling. They go to individual counseling. We have family counseling. The counselor comes in and we're learning how to fight fair. There's like 5 rules of fighting fair. Listening to each other. We have like the timer now. It's your turn for 1 minute, my turn. And they feel validated because they're being heard, which made a huge difference in our house. Chore chart made a huge difference too. Teenagers, they don't want to do nothing. But we're working together. So a year ago, it wasn't like that. My children were very ashamed of the things that they had lived through. Now they try to help other kids. They're getting out of their shells. They're advocating for their schools and their friends, which is just, it's such an awesome thing to watch. So I really believe that these principles would work.
Yeah, and on that topic, next to Michael, we have Recover Out Loud, the Stamp Out hashtag Stamp Out Stigma. Rachel, by the way, heads up the Recovery Epicenter here in West Pasco County, or all of Pasco County, I guess, right?
All of Pasco County.
And Pasco's a huge county.
Yes.
I mean, you could drive for hours and not only be to the middle of Pasco County.
I know that's right.
It's big, and there's not much but cows once you leave Holiday. So Stomp Out the Stigma, Stomp Out Stigma, hashtag Stomp Out Stigma. We can get folks to start doing that. Those shirts, by the way, that are hanging next to Pastor Michael are available for $20 each, and it helps support the Recovery Epicenter, which is a 501(c) charity that helps provide. Well, tell us what you do.
We're providing recovery services for Pasco County. We're working with providers to try to help get people things they need to overcome the roadblocks of recovery. you can take away drugs and alcohol, but people need help finding emotional wellness. So we try to help getting set up with counseling, housing, food. You know, to get somebody to listen to you, you need to make sure they're fed, they got some clean clothes on, you know, they've got some sleep in a safe place. So how do we help people come with that? Like, for example, we had a girl who came yesterday, 5 months pregnant, has had no prenatal care, no clothes, no real plan of what she's going to do. So we found some services that are going to come in. She'll have an OBGYN appointment next week. She's going to have some insurance. She got some food, got her some maternity clothes, got her some parenting classes, got her assessed for counseling, all those things. We also provide scholarship beds for people, short-term scholarships to help them get on their feet in FAR-accredited transitional living houses.
That's excellent. Pastor Michael, if you would, tell us about the Victor Freeman Foundation, what you do, and how do you think Rod's book could apply to what you do?
Oh, well, again, I'm a firm believer in Frederick Douglass' quote that it's easier to build strong children than to repair broken men. But there are men, as you mentioned, Mr. Cunningham, that they're grown men, muscles, beard, women, bunch of children, and their emotional quotient is that of a 12-year-old. And so, I've done jail time with plenty of guys that other people would be frightened of because they have muscles on their necks. And, I talk to them and really start seeing the hurting little boy inside of them. Guys that couldn't read, needed me to help them fill out a 62 form so they could ask for a toothbrush. And it's just amazing that, to your point, that little boy is still inside crying out, wanting some attention, some validation. And there are so many things that we use as the pacifiers or the bottles that you mentioned, and it makes us feel cool and it makes us fit in with the cool crowd or with the big boys, but it's really a cry from the little boy to give me a hug, pay me some attention, tell me that I matter. And that's really profound. When we feed the homeless, I generally find one or two men, and in the midst of the conversation, when they're kind of isolated and away from everyone else, they actually start crying. They break down and start crying because of their situation. But when they're around everybody else, they're tough guys and they're the big shots. And it's sad, actually, because as you mentioned, that your wife brought to your attention the key points of your story. We've all got a story, and often, depending on our environment, the trauma is normalized, and so we grow up just like everybody else, and we have to shake it off and dust ourselves off and find something to make us feel better or make us feel significant, and usually it's much to the detriment of our good.
We choose what we choose to comfort us, or the vices that we have is normally learned. So if I ask you, what do you do when you're stressed, and you say, I drink, when I'm asking a teenager, I say, who else drinks in your family?
Yeah.
My dad.
Right.
Okay, what do you do when you're stressed? I fight. Who else fights? My mom. We do what we see, even though we didn't like it.
That's right.
But we choose the same comforts that our parents chose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that's why, that's why a lot of men cheat. Okay, because they are finding comfort in other women, especially when their woman is the one that is stressing them.
Sure.
So let's say the job is stressing them. Now the woman is stressing them because they don't have a job. So now they're out looking for somebody else to comfort them. They're looking for a pacifier in another woman.
Yeah.
Instead of dealing with what they have going on at home. So, I always like to tell people that cheating is a mental health issue. So if your man or your woman cheats, it's a mental health issue. Now, when you got married, you said for sickness and in
health,
Yes,
for better, for poor, richer for poor,
Right.
for better or worse.
Right. So you said in sickness and in health. So if cheating is a mental health issue, you shouldn't be leaving your spouse for cheating.
Right.
You should be getting them counseling.
Yeah.
Getting them the books to help them with the 5 steps to emotional wellness. But if he's got an attitude and he's going off and he doesn't want to change, that's one thing. But if he's very apologetic, that's another. It's interesting that I've met women who have left a man for playing video games, and another one left a man for cheating. But one went back. Which one you think went back?
The cheater.
The cheating, the one who cheating on the spouse, that wife went back. And why is that?
That's what I'd like to know.
Because the one who was playing video games was never present. The one who cheated was always present. He was always a family man, even though he got stressed one day and stepped out. But the guy who played video games, he's just all, focused in a whole different world without his family.
Still juvenile.
Very juvenile.
And then does that then not apply to our kids as well? I've for decades now, I've been saying that parents, a big mistake we're making is we're relying on society to raise our kids for us.
That's correct.
So they talked about what to put on TV, what not to put on TV. Back when I had 300 channels of cable, you could put anything you want on my TV because I know what my kids are watching. Right? I'm not relying on my TV to raise my kids, or later Xbox to raise my kids.
But see, you're a father at home looking at your kids, communicating with your kids, saying, put it down, come on, let's do family things.
Right.
Oh, I don't want to, Dad. No, son. That they don't know what you're doing. They don't understand. But once they get older, like, well, my dad, he didn't play that. We always want to, when we get older, talk such great things about our dad. My dad always said, and my dad, told us that we could do that. And that's the problem with these kids today.
Yeah.
So they will appreciate you later. But at the moment, they want those gadgets. They want those video games. But it's up to Dad to be the leader, just like we want to lead the world. My wife always say, you out here trying to lead 5,000 troops, you got 3 kids in the back room. In the back room, go lead them.
Well, and here's the thing: the parents. I don't think
that's scarier.
I'm not so worried about the kids tuning out because I would expect that. The problem I see is that the parents have tuned out. That the parents are either involved in their own if they're single, they're involved in their own personal social life. They're involved, of course, in work, and nowadays a lot of work. Right? Some people have 2 and 3 jobs. And they they rely on the school not just to teach the A, B's, and C's anymore, but we rely on the schools to teach our kids right from wrong. Well, that's my job. That's your job as a parent at home. So we're burdening our school system with the duty of raising our children for us. Well, that's not their role either, right? It's our role as a family. And I think, Michael, maybe you could speak into this scripturally. Is this a way to break the generational curse they talk about in Scripture, where a little bit of heavy lifting on the part of the parent might and a program like your book, Rod, might break this cycle, this generational curse, and leave our kids maybe a little better off, at least emotionally, than we were when we were kids, right?
Absolutely, I think that's really profound. I've just been kind of meditating on what Mr. Cunningham talked about, the stress and the fact that we don't know how to alleviate that stress, and until we learn eventually to give it to God. Because one of the scriptures I was meditating on this week was Matthew chapter 11, and in verse 2, there's an invitation. Jesus invites us to come, and he says in verse 28, "Come to me, all ye who labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest." He says all, and I love the fact that the Greek word for all is all. And he says, "Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I'm gentle and lowly in heart, and you will find rest for your souls, for my yoke is easy and my burden is light." Yet, as young men, particularly in the African-American tradition, we have to overcome the stigma that's either attached to being a church boy, a mama's boy, or seeking therapy. And then we grow. I was also thinking, as you were talking, that it's amazing that even our slang kind of keeps us juvenile-minded. A full-grown man lives in a crib. He's going to the crib. And his woman is mama or his old lady. And so we kind of adopt that Oedipus complex, and we never really grow up. And most broken men look for a woman to help fix their situation. They're looking for a woman with a good job or her own house or some money.
Yeah.
Because they don't know how to, they're looking for that nurturer in the woman.
Exactly. So
as opposed to bringing something to the table themselves.
That's true. And that's why, you have so many women who are saying, I don't need a man.
Yeah.
I got this.
Yeah.
Right. And so the men are like, yeah, that's the one I want.
Right.
Because, you know I need a woman, and she makes a lot of money, and maybe she won't bother me to go and make some. So,
Yeah.
you know, I'll stay home with the kids, and I'll, you know,
Come and go as I please,
Yeah,
and
come
she
and
got
go.
her own thing going on. Don't need me.
Exactly. And she busy, so she don't know what I'm doing all
With the
day.
PlayStation on the big
Right.
screen.
Yeah.
PlayStation on the big screen. Eating up all them kids' snacks.
Say, Beyonce said, to the left, to the left.
Yes,
She had to
that's right.
tell him he had to go because he wasn't working, and he was messing with other women while she was at work.
Yeah.
Well, if he liked it, then he should have put a ring on it. That's what I say. See, did I sound cool there right then, Michael?
You did.
Did you just feel like I was down?
Hey, you get the A for effort always, brother. You know, that's what really counts.
I'm gonna go out tomorrow and get a fly haircut, bro. The kids still say fly,
Yeah, they still say fly every now and again.
so I'm gonna be fly.
Kids are you hanging out with?
Well, Mr. Cunningham, you I know you shared that you have over how many years military experience?
29 years.
29 years, and you got you got a real peaceable spirit about yourself. You got the Cuba Gooding Jr. thing going on there. I don't know who wore it first, but you rocking that. Tell us just where you find your peace, and do you exercise, work out, do yoga, go to church? Where do you attend church?
Well, I attend church at Bible-based
Okay.
fellowship church.
Yes, sir.
out
Your
on
spirit
Early
bears
Road.
witness. I can tell you go to a good Bible-believing church. What's the name of the church again?
Bible-based.
Bible-based.
fellowship.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So, you know, for me, I practice what I put in the books.
Okay.
You know, it's 2 books here. So the first book actually teaches you the 4 things that bother most youth that I talked about, and then the 5 steps to emotional wellness. But if we've been broken for 20 years,
Yeah.
and now all of a sudden we're well, what do I do now?
Yeah.
Well, I've been to counseling for 5 years. I'm healthy now. What's next?
Yeah.
So I wrote Climb 2, Time to Soar, to teach you how to move to the next level. So in that, I talk about the mind, body, and the spirit. And so when you wake up in the morning, you got to put the full armor of God on before you walk out of the house.
Full armor.
Full armor, because I had young men tell me, Mr. Cunningham, all this is great, but when I wake up tomorrow, it's still there.
Yeah.
And I say, it's a daily walk, son. It's a daily walk. So when you wake up in the morning, we start with the spirit. I say, I want you to wake up and pray, read your Bible for 20 minutes, and then meditate on the word that you just read. That's your first 20 minutes of the day.
Yeah.
The next 5 minutes, you're going to review your long-term and short-term goals that you've already written out. Then you're going to take 1 minute and review your vision board. And your vision board should depict what your life looks like 20 years from today. Then you're going to take another minute and close your eyes and visualize your life 20 years from now. I'm 51. I visualize my life at 71. And at 71, my grandson is 26.
Yeah.
And I've already put him through college, and he's running my company.
Okay.
Nice.
Which means at 6, you can't talk to my grandson crazy, because he's going to be running my business, and I need him fresh,
Ooh,
right?
Yes, sir.
And I need to send him to a good college. So, Pops, you ain't even got to worry about college for him. I'm telling my son, you ain't even got to worry about college for him, because I got it, because he's part of my vision.
Yes.
When I close my eyes every morning.
Right.
And so then I teach you how to look at or recite what you're grateful for every morning. You recite it out loud, as well as your self-affirmations. Now, after you've done all of that, that takes about 6 minutes, actually. Then you go run your body. You go run, exercise for 30 minutes, come back, take your vitamins, eat your breakfast, and then you're off. So that's mind, body, spirit every day. So when you walk out of the house and you said, I want to be a doctor in 5, 10, 15 years, and your buddy says, man, you're not going to be a doctor. Are you kidding me? And you look at him like he has 2 heads, because you've already programmed your mind to know exactly who and what you're going to be and what you're going to
And what's
have.
it going to take to get
And
there,
what's it
right?
gonna
So where
take to get
then
there.
does the personal responsibility fold in? So now you know what you want. Now are we going to work to get it?
Exactly.
Right? So 20 years from now, by the way, I picture myself walking around AJ's house with his wife and kids in a shorty robe and a diaper. AJ's my retirement plan. So if that kid don't hit bank, I'm dead. I'm writing a book, because that's all I have left to stand on.
You know,
So-
I find that really helpful. because I pulled my whole life down on my head. And so I had some goals, you know, like to fix the things I had broken, get off probation, get my kids back, get a house. And all those things happened. And I went through the steps, and I went to counseling the entire time I went through that process because I needed it. And so all these things happened for me. And then I was miserable. Like I didn't know how to take that. Like I didn't have that wake up and focus every day on this small-minded goals. So I had to step back and really change a few things. I was so busy being busy, even in church, volunteering for this and that. Like I had to stop and really rebuild that personal relationship with the Lord. For me, somewhere along the way, volunteering for this and praise and Bible study, it had fallen off the wayside. And so I had to reconnect and like go back to the basics, be still and be quiet for a few minutes each day.
You know, I had a friend who his father committed suicide, and he's in the Navy. He's a naval officer, and he has a part-time job. And this guy just goes and goes and goes. He makes like $200,000 a year because he's working so many jobs. He's teaching at night. He's doing this and doing that. And he told me, he said, because if he slows down, he's going to think about suicide.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow. He said, so I have to keep moving. So again, he hasn't dealt with the suicide because his father and his grandfather committed suicide. So he's never dealt with that, right? One-on-one. He's never been to counseling or anything. So he's never dealt with that. So he just keeps himself busy in order to not fall into that depressive state, which is not a good thing. Again, that's why I do what I do.
Sir. Because there are a lot of productive outlets that you can engage in activity, not really accomplishing anything. I mean, he's building up a bank account, but it's much to the detriment of his emotional health.
As well as his family.
And he's prolonging the inevitable. But often, being overworking, being a workaholic is a sign of some sort of void that you're trying to fill by other means.
Exactly. And you're not dealing with the root.
Yes.
And so these things, whatever we choose to comfort us, it's going to affect the 5 most important relationships in our lives. Relationship with our parents, with our spouse, with our children, with our best friend, or with our employer. So in other words, and they all are intertwined. So if your employer says, I'm laying off in 2 weeks, how does that affect your marriage?
Yeah.
Right? Woman, I don't want to hear it right now. Get away. Dad, can you read to me? Son, back up.
Yeah.
And definitely don't ask me about those new Jordans.
Right. Don't ask me about nothing, right? And so then you're calling your best friend to go out for a drink with you, and he doesn't have time. Well, I was there for you. So all of that one thing that happened at work is now affecting all of your relationships.
Yeah.
So we have to be mindful. And I'm mindful. It doesn't mean I don't still get crunk. In other words, my wife still has a button or two she knows how to push. And not necessarily saying she pushes on purpose, but you know, if she disagrees with something.
Let's hope she's not watching, by the way. Call in if you're watching. Let's straighten this guy out.
And so, you know, and I'm known to go there very quickly, right? And not very quickly, but I can go there and she say, Rod, you just raised your voice. And I'm saying, you know what? You're absolutely right. I did just raise my voice. I apologize. Right. And I bring it down. I say, well, honey, what is it that we need to do? What action we need to take to fix this situation? What's going to, you know, make you feel better about what just happened? And I want to fix that. Right? So we all go there, but how long do we stay there?
Yeah.
Are we there for 2 hours, 2 days, 2 months, or 2 minutes?
Yeah.
Before we give it to God so we can bring it down.
Yeah,
and we got to learn that fast.
Which goes back to what I would call our most important relationship, our first relationship. Augustine talked about disordered love, getting the things you love out of order, and that your relationship with your Creator should be the top of that, even above your wife and your kids and your job and everything else. And that if you're in that healthy in that relationship, then you should be better tooled to deal with the other relationships. Does that make sense?
That makes sense.
Mr. Cunningham, I'd like to ask, why is it that among men primarily, and then particularly in the African-American community, therapists are so maligned, or a person is viewed as weak if they go see a therapist. But at the same time, we talk to our homeboys on the corner, or we've got that one guy that we can talk to, our main man, or we go to the barber shop or the bar, or we stand on the liquor store lot and talk to really seeking therapy, but we won't see a professional therapist.
Well, that actually goes back to slavery. If you think about it, so think about us right now and our feelings and our beliefs and our loves and all these things, and then think about putting us right in the middle of a plantation. What did we see as men? Tell me, what do you think we saw in 1800? What did we see?
I can imagine a great deal of demasculation.
Demasculation.
If I were whipped in front of my woman, how could I ever be the man? Or one of my female relatives raped, to my knowledge, or one of my children beaten before me. How could I be the man of my household?
Or what if he decides he wants to take your wife?
Yeah.
And your son is standing there watching.
Bro, I didn't want to talk about that. I didn't want to go there.
And we don't,
I
right?
But
that's the reality for, let's say,
absolutely. I get
let's say 1800, right? Now, so now you're ready to defend your sister's honor who was raped. Mm-hmm. And what does your mother tell you to do? Son, don't go out there. No, Mama, I'm gonna hurt him. Son, I don't want to lose you too.
Right.
I need you to step back. Don't do it. I need you, son. Okay, Mama. So you hold it in. 30 years later, next generation, shh, son, shut your mouth.
Mm-hmm. Or if I'm pulled over and asked to get out of the car and everything that I own is thrown in the highway and I'm talked to like I'm a little boy and told,
shut your mouth.
Right.
Shut your mouth.
Yes,
I don't want anything to happen to you, son. So that keeps going generation after generation. Grandma said what goes on in the house
stays in the house.
And we had different grandmas. You see that?
Absolutely. That's right.
And they didn't have social media.
No, sir. You better not put that dirty laundry out there.
Right. So we were taught that from back then to now, to keep your mouth closed. There's nothing wrong with you. And if you tell on your uncle who touched you inappropriately,
oh, Lord, yeah,
your cousin's going to have to go to foster care, and your uncle's going to go to jail. He's the only one over there working, and they're going to take you away from me. Mm-hmm. So let that go, sweetie.
Right.
Right?
And everybody going to call you a punk because Uncle Fishbone touched you in your secret spot.
And so now we're holding on to all this stuff.
Yeah.
My wife has a friend. She's 52 now. But when she was 40, she was visiting her hometown, and she told her aunt, Uncle Junior touched me inappropriately when I was a teenager. The aunt said, oh, he got you too.
Yeah.
We keep everything in, and everything bad still keeps happening around us. We have got to tell the story. We have got to get it out, and we have to stop holding these things in. We've got to go to counseling. Black and brown people don't go to counseling.
And we got to stop. We got to stop protecting Uncle June bugs too.
Yes, we do have to stop protecting them. And I knew 5 years ago, I knew 3 people who were touched inappropriately. Today, I know 172 people who have told me that they were touched inappropriately. So that's something that's going on in our community, all communities, left and right, and everybody's hush-hush about it. And it's not being taken care of, and that trauma is rolling into our school system, is rolling into our families, into our communities. So because when you have a broken man, because and my wife always says this, the blessings of the household come through you, Rod. If you're not in place, the whole family is out of place.
Yes, sir.
And so if I am broken, I can't make sure my kids are doing the right thing many times, right? And they're going to school acting out, and now they're going into community, and the community is affecting the nation, right? So then you back that out. If you take the man away from the house, the nation is broken.
Yeah.
Mm. You put the man back in the house, he can go to God on a situation and make sure everything is well. And if you put men back in the home all over, now you have wellness. Yes. For the most part.
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
It still doesn't eliminate other things like people dying, but at least your dad can step you through that.
Right.
When you got mom and dad, you normally got yin and yang, right? You know, your mom is aggressive, your dad's laid back, or your dad's aggressive and your mom's laid back. And so you got that. Both are really helping you through things. These are your first counselors.
That's right.
And so if mom's always working and she's tired and she's working 3 jobs because there's no man in the house, how can she be your counselor?
And daddy is the street corner.
Yeah, well, when I'm in jail preaching to the guys in jail, more often than not, the thing that reaches them the strongest or breaks them, and we're talking about guys with gold teeth, missing teeth, tattoos on their eyelids and necks and everything else, and these are, outside bad dudes. And I bring up, are you the spiritual leader of your home? If you don't need this for you, what about for your kids? And they'll break, man, and that is an inherent natural response that we've buried, right? Because we want to exist on a certain level in society, and it is, by the way, idolatry of status. So we've made a god of our status or what people think of us. So we have replaced our relationship with our Creator, our Genesis 2 relationship, with the god of status, right? I've done it myself. But the thing that is inherent in these guys is you talk about their kids and are you the spiritual leader of that home? Are we called to raise godly kids, or aren't we? And it crushes them. It crushes them. So they know deep down inside that that's there, right?
Amen.
Yes, sir. You mentioned a vision board, Mr. Cunningham, and I was, one of my favorite scriptures. I'm a scribbler. You see, I got my notepad here, and I got $1 million ideas in this notepad right here, and so I just wanted to share Habakkuk 2:2, right? And you tell me what your correlation is between this scripture and your understanding of the importance of having a vision board. It says, write the vision and make it plain on tablets, that he may run who reads it. For the vision is yet for an appointed time, but at the end it will speak, and it will not lie.
That is absolutely correct. I've been believing that for a long time. And I write it, and I make the vision. And I also believe that a man cannot have my daughter unless he has a plan. I'm not saying you can't marry her right now, but go get a plan and come back and see me, and then we can talk.
Yes, sir.
Right? So we should have a plan for our family. We should have a plan for our fiance if we want to take her away from her family and marry her. Come with a plan. And then make that plan very plain so that she understands. Because when Eve came onto this earth, everything was done.
Yeah.
It was already planned out, and it was done. Right. So when a woman comes into a relationship, she needs a plan. She needs it done. And I believe in that, and that's why I'm all about these vision boards and writing down our short-term and long-term goals and looking at it enough so it sticks.
Yeah.
And that you can go and achieve them, and I believe that. But you got to keep putting it out there.
So because I've been looking at my Sidney Moncrief poster on my wall for 40 years, I can still get in the NBA?
Yeah.
Well, you wouldn't try to cross the Atlantic without a compass, right? So why wouldn't you use something like this to guide you to where you need to go, where you want to go? I mean, it only makes sense. The idea that we would use a compass to navigate from here to Winn-Dixie or GPS,
Right.
but we're going to go through life blind, day by day, not knowing, not having any kind of exit strategy at all for our future, as parents, as men, as women, in recovery or not, is absolutely ridiculous when you think about it. That we are, we're moved by every change of wind, right? James talked about that.
Yeah. The fact that he also shared with us the steps to soar when a young man wakes up to look at his vision board and work on his statement of intent and get some meditation. You were mentioning without a compass, and so I just thought, if you were taking a cross Atlantic airplane flight and you were off just a couple of degrees. By the time you reached your destination, you wouldn't reach your destination. And so if each day you can check your vision or do a daily moral inventory or a step 10, take a personal inventory and see where you're off today from yesterday, then by the end of the week, you can be back on course. Or if I don't start my day with a plan, how will I know when I'm off course at noon or 1 o'clock?
Exactly. When you develop, when you're 16 and you imagine your life at the age of, say, 36, and you say, I want to be a school principal, right, at 36. Well, then when you back that out and you're 16, well, you know you got to get into college in order to be a principal, right?
Right.
So now what can I be doing today? You got to study. You can't go party.
That's right.
You got to get the A so you can get into college. Then you got to get into college, and you got to make the grades so you can graduate from college. Then you got to become a teacher. Then there's steps to it all.
Steps.
And so you've got to understand that. So that's why it's important to, what did the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People begin with the end in mind?
Again, with the end in mind. Yes,
So
sir.
you look at where you want to go, and then you got to do something every day towards that. A lot of people want to write a book, but when you ask them, well, how many chapters have you written in the last month?
I got the outline.
I got the outline. You can write one line or one sentence a day and still be closer to your goal in 30 days than not writing anything. So you have to wake up taking that next step. And when you're doing certain projects and you're trying to achieve certain things, you don't even need an alarm clock. You just pop right up.
Yeah.
Because you're ready to go. You know you have something you're working towards.
Okay, so if we're going to close with a final thought, I'm going to run through kind of what everybody's got going on. Everybody's websites are going to get up on the screens for closing. But in the meantime, elevator speech, closing thought. What would we say if somebody that thinks they need some of what's in that book? What do they do next?
Well, I want to give you specifically the 5 steps to emotional wellness. Number 1 is your spirituality. You have to deal with your spirit, man. And a lot of times we connect our spirit to people and not to him, to our spouses, to our children, to our boyfriend and girlfriends. And if you connect your spirit to a 16-year-old boy, when he breaks up with you, you could be suicidal. Kids are killing themselves because they broke up with someone. Their spirit should be attached to someone who will never disappoint them.
Exactly.
So number 2 is forgiveness. You got to forgive everyone who's ever hurt you in your entire life. And that's the one that most people struggle with. Well, Mr. Cunningham, you don't know what they did to me. It doesn't matter. You have to forgive them. And I go through step by step exactly how to do that. And when you think you've forgiven, you'll know if you have, because when you think about the person or the event, if no emotions come up, no negative emotions, then you're forgiven.
Yeah.
But if you get sad, angry, anxiety, depressed, you haven't forgiven them. Number 3 is write about it. Write a book, write a poem, write a story, write a movie, something to get that thing you're holding inside and get it out and put it on paper.
Speak it into the light. So you're only as sick as your secrets.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Number 4 is purpose. You have to find purpose in your life. You know, I talked about going into the juvenile detention centers and things like that. And you know, and the work that I'm doing now, it's all purpose-filled work. And purpose has nothing to do with you. It has everything to do with why is someone else's life better because you lived.
Yeah.
And then the last one, of course, is counseling. We've been talking about counseling.
Yeah.
So I'm going to put your website up on the board here. Again, that is cheapempowerment.com. You can reach out to Rod Cunningham there. You can get the books there, and I think these are books that I don't know how sales are, bro, but they need to be out there. These are tools that are indispensable, I think, for parents that are working without a net or working with a compass right now.
Sales are actually awesome because people buy like 50 to 200 books at a time
for groups, and
for a group. Yes.
So that's excellent. I would. I'll read them and consider folding them into the Building 12 protocol, because we're always looking for good, positive literature to include in our Building 12 recovery process.
And they are workbooks, so you have to do something at the end of every chapter to move to the next level.
I'm in recovery, bro. I don't want to do any work. I've been sober 30 years. I still haven't done a 4th step yet. I'm working on it. I'm working my way up to it. Rachel, how about you? Tell us about Recovery Epicenter, and I'm going to put your website up on the screen here, and tell what's going on with you and the local recovery community here in Pasco, and how can folks get involved with that?
We are building a recovery community organization in Pasco County to help people get in recovery and stay in recovery. We have symposium planning. We have a big symposium coming up September 28th. Planning is June 19th at Trinity Church of Christ. Everyone's welcome to come get involved. August 8th, we're having a Narcan giveaway and training. We're going to have a bunch of vendors there who provide free services for the community or that are Medicaid eligible. We really want to help people engage in services that normally get intimidated by that.
Sure. So that and all that information can be found on your website, or should they hit you up on your Facebook page, or what's the best way to proceed with that?
Well, it will be on the website by the end of the week if it's not already, and they can always hit me up on Facebook.
Okay, excellent. And then Pastor Michael, down the end there, buddy, Victor Newman. Did I accidentally put the Godlogic Project up there?
Put the Godlogic Project.
My bad. All right, Victor Newman, buddy, how can people support this? What is this project, and how can people support it, bro?
Victor Newman Ministries, we are a grassroots, not-for-profit 501c3 organization, and we are committed and devoted to being a hand up, not just a hand out, to the last, least, lost, left out, and the looked over. We're primarily focused right now on the homeless community, but we know that homelessness is a symptom and not the actual problem itself. And so with that, we're also involved in recovery, and we do a massive food distribution each and every week. We give away about 5,000 to 6,000 pounds of food to the food insecure in the Lake Palms neighborhood. So we're looking for volunteers, and we're looking for donations. We've given away over 600,000 pounds of food in the last couple of years, and nobody knows about it. And so we've had no corporate sponsorship. It's just been the mighty hand of God has made it possible.
Yeah, and now it's, I think, about time local businesses lean into this and the recovery community, because like we've talked about on every episode we've done, we're not just taking away a liability for their business, but we're delivering them an asset a year from now, right? Somebody that is that can be a valuable employee, right? And generally folks that struggle with addiction, and you'll find that in the homeless community and in obviously the addiction community, but they're generally above average intelligence, hardworking. Once they recover and get their acts together, they are invaluable assets to the business community, and I think that's something that the business community is just swinging and missing on.
We're all made in God's image, and so what I like to share with people, even the most reprobate individual still is made in God's image. So he's got a great team. He just needs a new coach.
Exactly.
And so the potential's there. The potential's there.
Why you say reprobate and then look over to this end of the table, bro?
Well, hey, brother, you're just across from me, and so when I have those type of adjectives, you're just right in my eyes. I look at you actually, and a bunch of synonyms come to mind.
I get that a lot. I seem to get that everywhere I go. You know, in high school, I was voted most likely to be cared for by the state. That was not flattering, bro. 7 years of high school, I just gave up. I just couldn't do it anymore. All right, so this is the Godlogic Project. These are the folks that are in your community, in our community, making a difference every day. Reach out to them on those on their website. Certainly, if there's something I can do for you personally, godlogicproject@gmail.com. Email me if I don't have a resource at my disposal, and the Godlogic Project is becoming kind of a hub for resources for these types of things. If I can help, I will. If I can, I'll find somebody that can, or I'll tell you I can't. Please subscribe, ring the alert bell. Looking to get to 1,000 subscribers for a couple of different reasons. Look for the Godlogic Project to be live streaming charity and events around the area. I'm looking forward to doing that. Just tooled up yesterday. I was telling Michael before the show started all the stuff I worked on yesterday. Got my bottom kicked trying to figure out all this technology stuff. I'm a plumber, bro. I'm not a tech guy, so I'm still a little behind the learning curve here, growing into it. And I appreciate all you guys for being on the show as always. Rachel, good to see you. Rod, it was excellent to meet you, and I'm looking forward to reading your books. Pastor Michael, buddy, thank you for co-hosting your first episode. Thank you. You were awesome.
Thanks for coming, Mr. Cunningham. I'm glad I drove up this way.
Yeah, it was a good night, right?
Absolutely. Wonderful.
We could have gone on another hour. In fact, we're probably a little over an hour now, but that's it, guys. If no one's told you they love you today, God loves you. So do I. Receive that. Be blessed. And we'll speak soon. Outro music. Thank you for supporting the Godlogic Project. And if no one's told you they love you today, God loves you. So do I. Receive that. Be blessed. We'll speak soon. This has been a Rev Kev production. Your mileage may vary.
Shut up, Kevin.